So let's talk about the final leg of the season, how the NBA is going to look, and let's end this series. Of course, we do not have the final standings. I am going to do probably a final standings going into the playoffs video tomorrow. But I just now want to go over every team. I've gone over every award, every major award. Now I've also spoken about individuals, the MVP chances. I've spoken about the Defensive Player of the Year, most improved. And I've really done in this channel, and I've taken this week basically I want to recap the season awards and what's been happening throughout the season in these videos so that we can finally have a clear idea of what every award is going to look like, what the matchups are going to look like, and what should we expect. Tomorrow at around 7 p.m., we'll probably already have every single answer that we need to know when it comes to the playoff seeding, which matchups are going to be. And in both conferences, tomorrow is a big day. There is still at least one spot in both of the conferences which is waiting to be taken, and it is honestly very concerning, or at least very interesting, that we've been able to have the season be this interesting until the very end. This is something that normally doesn't happen, and I think it's because of the play-in tournament, because teams are always fighting to stay inside of the 10-team window and into the playoff picture. I think it's caused, teams to not give up as easily as they used to. I normally don't give a lot of props to the play-in because I do think that having another tournament sometimes will confuse some fans. But I do think that this year it's been showing why it was a good addition. Because even teams like the Pacers, let's say, or the Heat, which on the other spots, on other years, would be in the playoffs right now, still have to battle for their position. And it makes teams like the Bulls or the Hawks still have to actually care and play games through the rest of the season because they now get to compete for a chance at being in the playoff picture, which is fun, it's exciting. So let's speak on what are the biggest questions right now for the season. Four teams in the East have already locked up their playoff position, which are the Celtics, Bucks, Knicks, and Cavaliers. So that means that those four teams are in the playoffs. They, I think, all got wins except the Bucks yesterday, and the Bucks and the Knicks are actually tied in record, which is pretty interesting because if the Knicks have a better record than the Bucks and they finish as the second seed, that would be one of the more interesting tales of how the Bucks have completely gone out of rail. They've just been terrible at the end of the season. They win enough because they can, and we all know that no Bucks player or coach or anything in that organization is happy right now or looking at the results with a positive attitude. In terms of the teams which are not in 100% yet, and by the way, the playoff picture, in my opinion, is the top six. If you guys don't know, because of the play-in tournament now, as I was speaking about earlier, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seed all have to compete in the play-in tournament, which is a bracket-style small tournament where two teams out of the four that play get to come out of that tournament and go into the playoffs. But really, if you're a 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th seed, that doesn't guarantee you a playoff spot, right? Like, yes, if you're the Miami Heat right now, or even the Indiana Pacers, that they're still in the play-in, you feel pretty confident in the fact that you might, get into the playoffs. But if we're being honest, we don't want to make any assumptions or have any, certainties because we don't know what's going to happen. And we know that teams like the Hawks or like the Bulls have beat other play-in teams before. And it's not even funny how close they came last season to beating the Heat. So, yeah. So now what we see in the East is that there are three teams 5, 6, and 7 in terms of seeding, which all have the same record, which are the Magic, Sixers, and Pacers. So basically, tomorrow, they're not facing each other, I don't think. So that means that whoever out of these teams win is going to advance. I think that the Sixers have the best chance of winning. They're facing against the Nets, a team which doesn't care about their record. And I think the Pacers also have a great chance of winning because they're going to go up against the Hawks, and the Hawks have lost 5 straight, and they look like they're already tanking for next season. And in my opinion, I do think the Magic might have to go through the play-in because they've lost 3 straight, and then they have to go up against Milwaukee, which even though Milwaukee does look beat down, I do think that they can beat the Magic. So in my opinion, I do think it's going to be 76ers and Pacers in that playoff picture. And the matchups that would create would be Celtics, Heat, and I'm not going to account for the Bulls and Hawks because even though I said it is randomized, let's be honest. We can assume that the Heat and the Pacers are going to win. So the Celtics versus the Heat. If the Magic lose, then it would be the Bucks versus the Magic in the playoffs. It would be the Knicks versus the Pacers, right? And it would be the Cavs versus Sixers, and that would be the East. For the West, we already see that 5 teams have locked up their playoff position, so that means that their window is pretty tight. The Thunder, the Timberwolves, and the Nuggets all have the same seed. So that means that tomorrow, whoever wins those games is going to have the first seed. The Nuggets are going to face the Grizzlies, which is a very easy team, but I don't think that they're going to play their players if we're being 1,000% honest. If the Nuggets do, then it is because they want the first seed, which is pretty weird for the Nuggets to want a seeding. You know, I think they're just going to put their entire list of players as injured and just ride with the second seed because, in my opinion, the difference between the 8th seed in the West and the 6th seed is not that much of a difference. And I do think that the Nuggets prefer to play the Lakers, which are probably going to be the 7th seed if they win tomorrow's game, than playing a team, you know, like the Suns, which have shown to give them some struggle, you know, in the past. Oh no, wait, the Lakers are not going to be the 7th seed. So then that means that the Nuggets would probably want the first seed. The Timberwolves are going to face off against the Suns. That's actually going to be a big matchup because if the Timberwolves win, then that means that the Suns are in the play-in and they're not in the playoffs. And if the Suns win and the Pelicans lose to the Lakers in their final game, then that means that the Suns could actually sneak into the playoffs. So that means that the Lakers would have to win. The Suns would also have to win, and the Pelicans would have to lose, and the Timberwolves would have to lose. The Clippers and Mavericks are sitting comfortably. I don't think any of them are getting overtaken, and even if the Pelicans win one more game, they're both going to be in the playoffs, and for sure I do think that the Mavericks versus the Thunder is going to be a great game. But I do think that both teams feel confident in their own abilities. And finally, the Clippers, which they're comfortable in their position, and I don't think they're probably going to move. I think the only people who want them to move are the Mavericks, because the Mavericks would want that 4th seed, so Luka's MVP chances go up. I do think that the Clippers are going to rest their players. They're playing Houston tomorrow, which is not a competitive team at all. So maybe they'll rest Kawhi, rest PG, start getting them ready for the postseason. And so no injuries happen last minute. I think they might actually sell that game. Because if we're being honest, I don't think they care about who they face in the 6th seed. So in the end, for these teams, for the seeding, and in general, when it comes to the balance and the way that the league is right now, it is very interesting. I do think that the play-in in the Western Conference is probably the most interesting storyline there is, because if the Warriors win tomorrow or the Kings win tomorrow and the Lakers lose, then that means that they would all have the same record, and that would change a lot. the Lakers winning yesterday meant that now they're the 8th seed, but one mistake, one loss could lead them to be the 10th seed. So in the West, tomorrow is the deciding day. We're getting the final standings and how it's looking. It is going to be a very interesting day. By the way, tomorrow the Warriors face the Jazz, right? And the Kings, they face the Trailblazers. So yeah,